Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Dulcimerica. My name is Futch and I am your host for this program, showing you a little bit more about how to progress with the mountain dulcimer, taking you on the road, and a lot more than that. Before I get down deep into today's episode, how to play Over the Rainbow from The Wizard of Oz, I'd like to send out a big shout out to Julia Perry, one of my patrons on Patreon. Patreon is a way for people to support artists like myself. Folks like Steve Hulberg, Steven Seifert, Aaron Lewis are all on Patreon, Aaron O'Rourke, and the funds go towards creating new projects and just being able to kind of focus on music and other things in the studio. It's fantastic. My patrons are awesome. They've helped to produce albums. They helped to produce the Dulcimerica video podcast, and they help to make possible educational programs for schools and libraries. So Julia pledged in at $1 amount that got her a shout out here on Dulcimerica. Thank you very much, Julia, for your support, and to all my patrons and everybody else who has helped support and encourage my art over the years. I really appreciate it. And you can find out more about my Patreon drive at patreon.com/bingfutch, right down there on the screen. Kind of surprised that I have not done a podcast about playing Over the Rainbow. It is featured in one of the early podcasts where I play it at the Nutmeg Dulcimer Festival, but I have not actually walked people through it. So this was a Dulcimail suggestion, and here it is. I'm tuned in DAA, that's the Ionian mode, and one thing that's really super important here, notice that the dulcimer is really at an angle away from me as opposed to being like this. Because when you're trying to get up into the upper octave, your body will get in the way unless you get that dulcimer away from you like this. That serves a couple of purposes. One, it gives you easy access to the upper register, the second octave, but it also gets that upper bout over your knee, so where when you start playing down here, the dulcimer won't flip up from the tail end on you. Now if you're wearing a seatbelt, that doesn't matter so much. But nonetheless, it's still a really good position to be in, and you don't get in your own way when you're playing. And that's really important and key for this particular tune. Let's walk through it step by step. I'm going to start off with here, using a 2-finger chord for D major. And then we're going to come all the way up here. So I like to slide up that, but I'm not sliding with my fingers down to get all those slidey sounds you get. I lift my fingers up off the fretboard, but I slide them on the strings. It's a little bit quieter. And I put a little tremolo on there as well. So here's our chord shape, boom, boom, and boom. And if you're not used to the 1-5-5 chord shapes, just another fancy way of saying DAA or CGG, they're pretty simple. And once you get used to them, you'll find that playing this song is, in particular, very easy. So we're going from here to here, and then we're going to change the shape of that chord to a T-shaped chord. If you can see right there what's going on, I'm right there at the 9th fret with my index finger coming back to the 7th fret with my ring finger. Thumb is on the 9th fret on the melody string for that T. But I'm not just playing it like that. I'm also barring with my pinky. This comes in super handy no matter what tuning you're in, but it really comes in handy when you're playing in the 1-5-5 tuning, because it allows you to capture melody notes that are down at the bottom of the chord shape. So in this case, going from here, you'll see me throw that pinky all the way across the 7th fret, because our next melody note is actually coming from the 7th fret. If you didn't do the pinky bar, you'd have to drop a pinky down in there anyway to get that note. So by barring it, all you have to do is lift up the fingers that are the closest to the bridge and you'll get that note by barring with the pinky. So again, going from here, pinky in, drop into the T shape. And you really don't need to get the bass string in there if you don't need to. It's really most important for you to be on the middle and on the melody string. So And again, those melody notes there are here. Like that. Another T-shaped chord. Now, we're not going to be going down to the first fret for any melody notes, but I just make it a habit to drag the pinky and bar it behind those chords, just force of habit, because you never know when you're playing something else when you might want to get down there, lift up those fingers, and get all the way down to the bottom of the chord or the top of the chord, depending on which way you're looking at the fretboard. So we're coming down to the T shape here. A shape. These are A shapes right here. And then another T shape. And I do a little bit of business there to kind of keep things moving along. So coming from here, a little bit of arpeggiation in there. Now, I've got the middle finger poised and hanging out right above the 6th fret on the bass string, and that's going to give us a little bit of a dominant 7th walk down. And the 7th chord leads very nicely into our T chord there. Another A-shaped chord here. Another A-shaped chord, move this whole thing down. Here we're going to use that pinky at the 3rd fret for our melody. The notes are here. Another A-shaped chord. And the notes are here. Back into our 2-finger D. Then bring it down here, and then let's come on up and do it again. Now we're going to bring some drone into the picture and just hang out on the melody string. Our melody notes right here. Little partial chord there. Then go back into it. From the 6.5 fret. Is where you'll find me. Are those notes located there? And then we do the whole thing over again. And then for our tag, we go back into that bridge part again. Oh, sorry. And then here, it's going to be a bit of a stretch, but why can't, and then I comes up to the 10th fret, and then the 6th fret middle string is going to go down to the 5th fret, for a sweet little chord. That is Over the Rainbow. That was taught to me by Tim Carnahan back in 1989. 1986 at Knott's Berry Farm Theme Park. It's one of the first tunes I learned in the very first year, the very first summer that I began playing the mountain dulcimer. I love playing it. It's a very, very simple tune, and it sounds great. If you're not a DAA or CGG person, it makes for wonderful, wonderful textures in the chords because the notes are closer together. Think about it. DAD has got a bass note. Then we go to a fifth above the bass note, and then another D, which is an octave above the bass note. So we've only got two notes there, and two of those notes are separated, or the same note is separated by an octave, which means that when you create chords in DAD tuning, there's a lot of space in between those notes, and sometimes it can be very difficult to hear the true texture of a chord. But in DAA tuning, we still have only two notes, and we've got our root and then a fifth, but then we have another note that's a fifth above the root, and those two are unison. They're the exact same pitch. Because this note on the melody string isn't an octave above, it just makes for richer sounding chords. So consider it if you're not already a DAA or CGG player, or any of the other EBB, any of the other versions of a 155 tuning that are out there. Give it a shot, and I think you'll really enjoy it a whole bunch. That is it for this particular episode of Dulcimerica. I've got a bunch more coming, and very soon I'm going to be heading out on the road and giving you some travel logs, looking at some festivals, house concerts, and interviews with other mountain dulcimer players on the road out there in Dulcimerica. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time right here on the Dulcimerica Video Podcast. Until then, I'm Bing Futch.